As the final hours closed in on Charles Starkweather, the reality of death could no longer be delayed. Only 19 years old, he had already murdered 11 people, carving his name into one of the darkest chapters of American crime. But as execution approached, what occupied his thoughts? Was there fear, regret, or reflection? Or had he long since severed himself from guilt, viewing death as another ending he could not control? In this video, we examine the final 24 hours of Charles Starkweather, tracing the psychology, choices, and silence of a killer standing face to face with his mortality. Charles Starkweather's descent toward death did not begin with violence. On the surface, his early life appeared unremarkable, shaped by the quiet routines of mid-century America. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska, in 1938, he was one of 7 children raised in a working-class household struggling to maintain stability. His father, Guy Starkweather, earned a living as a carpenter, but chronic rheumatoid arthritis often left him unable to work. His mother, Helen, worked long hours as a waitress, carrying much of the financial burden. Despite hardship, neighbors and relatives described the family as functional, even caring. There were no early signs that one child would one day become one of the most feared killers in American history. Yet beneath that ordinary exterior, Charles Starkweather felt profoundly different. From an early age, he struggled socially and physically. He was born with genu varum, a condition that caused his legs to bow outward, making him a target for ridicule. He also claimed to have a speech impediment, which further isolated him from classmates. School became a place of humiliation rather than learning. While other children formed friendships, Starkweather withdrew, internalizing the mockery and resentment. Teachers described him as slow and unmotivated, reinforcing a sense of inferiority that followed him into adolescence. As he grew older, his anger found few healthy outlets. Academically, he failed to thrive, but in physical education he excelled, discovering that strength and aggression earned him respect he could not find elsewhere. This contrast deepened his bitterness. He later reflected that his hatred for society took root during those early school years, when laughter followed him through hallways and playgrounds. What began as teasing slowly hardened into contempt, shaping a worldview in which he saw himself as perpetually wronged. Home offered little refuge. Tensions between his parents escalated over time, culminating in violence. Starkweather later claimed his father once pushed him through a window, an incident that symbolized the breakdown of authority and safety in his life. Eventually, Helen divorced Guy on grounds of extreme cruelty, fracturing what little stability remained. The collapse of his family structure compounded the rejection he felt outside the home, reinforcing his belief that the world was hostile and unjust. By his mid-teens, Starkweather had dropped out of school entirely. With no education and few prospects, he drifted between low-paying jobs, including work as a garbage collector. His frustration intensified as he watched others move forward while he remained stuck. It was during this period that he met Carol Anne Fugate, a girl 13 years his junior. Their relationship became central to his identity, offering him a sense of control and belonging he lacked elsewhere. To outsiders, the pairing was deeply troubling. To Starkweather, it was validation. His thinking grew increasingly distorted. He began expressing a bleak philosophy about life and death, reportedly stating that all dead people were equal. Life, in his mind, had lost its inherent value. It was no longer sacred or protected, but something to be dominated. This shift marked a critical turning point. The anger he had carried for years no longer simmered quietly. It sought release. That release came on November 30th, 1957. What began as a minor dispute over a stuffed animal at a gas station escalated into murder. Starkweather shot and killed attendant Robert Calvert, crossing a line from resentment to irreversible violence. The act did not bring relief. Instead, it unlocked something darker. With that first killing, Starkweather discovered power. Fear replaced humiliation, and control replaced rejection. Over the following weeks, violence became routine. On January 21st, 1958, the spree intensified when Starkweather drove to the home of Carol Fugate's family. Her parents had long opposed the relationship, viewing him as dangerous and unstable. That day, their warnings ended in tragedy. Starkweather shot Marion Bartlett and Velda Bartlett at close range. The brutality escalated further when he beat 2-year-old Betty Jean to death. The killings were not impulsive. They were deliberate, systematic, and chilling in an attempt to avoid detection. Starkweather concealed the bodies and left a note claiming the family was sick. When Carol returned home, he told her they were being held hostage and that obedience was the only way to keep them alive. This claim would later become central to debates about her role. Whether victim or accomplice, her presence alongside him became inseparable from the crimes that followed. The murders continued. At the farmhouse of August Meyer, a family friend, Starkweather showed no hesitation. Meyer was killed with a shotgun blast, followed by the execution of his dog. The killings were no longer personal. They were procedural. Each stop along the road became an opportunity to assert dominance over life itself. As the body count rose, fear spread across Nebraska. Law enforcement struggled to connect the crimes, while the public grappled with the realization that a teenage killer was moving freely through the countryside. Starkweather and Fugate remained elusive, slipping through roadblocks and leaving devastation behind them. The violence showed no signs of slowing. It was accelerating. By the time authorities realized the scale of the threat, Starkweather had already crossed from troubled youth into something far more dangerous. The boy who once felt invisible had become impossible to ignore, and with every mile traveled, the distance between him and redemption grew wider. As Starkweather's trail of violence expanded, the sense of panic across Nebraska reached unprecedented levels. Each new discovery confirmed what authorities feared. This was not a series of isolated incidents, but a continuous spree driven by a killer who felt untouchable. The public followed developments with mounting dread, while law enforcement faced intense scrutiny for their inability to stop the bloodshed. Yet Starkweather and Fugate continued moving, leaving behind stolen vehicles, lifeless bodies, and unanswered questions. After fleeing the Meyer farmhouse, the pair encountered 2 teenagers, Robert Jensen and Carol King, offering them a ride in Bennett, Nebraska. What followed was among the most disturbing episodes of the spree. Starkweather forced the couple at gunpoint to a remote storm cellar. There, he executed Jensen with a single shot to the back of the head. He then attempted to sexually assault King. When she resisted, he killed her as well. The murders were cold, efficient, and devoid of hesitation, reinforcing the perception that Starkweather no longer saw people as human beings. Their next target was the home of wealthy industrialist C. Lauer Ward. Breaking into the residence, Starkweather stabbed the maid, Lillian Fenkel, to death. He then killed the family dog to prevent it from alerting anyone. When Clara Ward arrived, she was attacked and fatally wounded. Chester Ward was shot when he returned home. The scene revealed careful calculation. Valuables were taken, and the Ward family's Packard was used to flee. The killings marked a shift from opportunistic violence to strategic survival. The discovery of the Ward murders sent shockwaves through Lancaster County. Fear intensified as the public realized that wealth, status, and innocence offered no protection. The narrative surrounding juvenile delinquency, already a national concern, exploded into public discourse. Authorities responded with an unprecedented manhunt. Governor Victor Emmanuel Anderson called in the National Guard. Officers conducted house-to-house searches, while vigilante groups formed out of frustration and fear. Despite these efforts, Starkweather and Fugate slipped across state lines. Abandoning the Packard, they headed west toward Wyoming, desperate to stay ahead of capture. Near Douglas, they encountered Merle Collison, a traveling salesman asleep in his car. Starkweather woke him and killed him without provocation. There was no argument, no resistance, no motive beyond convenience. Collison became the final victim, murdered simply because he was there. Ironically, this killing led directly to Starkweather's capture. Unfamiliar with the car's parking brake, he stalled while attempting to flee. A passing motorist stopped to help, triggering an encounter that drew law enforcement to the scene. When Deputy William Romer arrived, Fugate ran to him, claiming Starkweather was going to kill her. Starkweather fled, initiating a high-speed chase that ended when gunfire shattered his windshield. Believing he was dying, he surrendered. The reign of terror ended not with defiance, But with confusion and fear at trial, the prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Blood-stained clothing, stolen vehicles, eyewitness accounts, and confessions left little room for doubt. Starkweather appeared detached, showing no visible remorse. His defense argued mental disturbance, citing childhood bullying and family dysfunction. But the jury was unconvinced. After deliberating for 22 hours, they returned a guilty verdict. The death sentence followed swiftly. Carol Anne Fugate faced her own trial, accused of being an accomplice. She maintained that she had been held hostage, forced to comply under threat. The court rejected her defense, sentencing her to life in prison. The contrast between her persistent claims of fear and Starkweather's indifference-fueled debate that continues decades later on death row, Starkweather remained calm. He made no dramatic appeals and expressed little regret. On June 25, 1959, he was executed by electric chair. His final words revealed no sorrow, only defiance. His death brought closure for some, but reopened moral questions about justice, punishment, and responsibility. Starkweather's legacy endures not only in the crimes he committed, but in the questions he left behind. Was he shaped by circumstance or driven by choice? Was Fugate a victim or a participant? And does execution serve justice, or merely mirror the violence it seeks to condemn? These questions remain unresolved, echoing long after the final current passed through Old Sparky. His legacy stands as a stark reminder of how easily human cruelty can eclipse empathy and leave scars that outlive any sentence. No verdict can restore what was taken or erase the suffering left behind. How do you view this case and the questions it raises about justice, responsibility, and punishment? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more in-depth true crime analysis.